Okay, so yes, I would like to talk about some applications of characters of the conformal algebra in higher spin holography. So in this talk, I will talk mostly about, well, dimension 4 and higher. Dimension 2 is a particular case, but I'm really concerned about ADS4, CFT3, and higher versions. Okay, so this is joint work with Thomas Basile and Hye-Han Young from at Seoul. And so we have this work, which is about a higher spin algebra, and there is also a second paper coming very soon, hopefully, about conformal higher spin gravity. Okay, so this is the plan of the talk, if I succeed to do it. So I will spend a lot of time about this first part, which is more first an introduction to higher spin holography, some motivation and what I mean here. And then also I will outline and summarize the main results. So basically with this, these are contained the main messages, and then there will be a second part maybe with more technical details. And then finally, I will conclude, summarize the main results again, and put some possible further work. Okay, so higher spin holography and the representation theory of the conformal algebra. So first of all, what do I mean here by higher spin holography? So this arose quickly after the birth of ADS-CFT, and the idea was to look at it in the extreme order regime, where actually the CFT is free, or maybe some integrable model. So in that case, we have an infinite number of higher order conformal symmetries, so higher spin symmetries, rigid ones. And so if you apply the Noether theorem, this means that the spectrum of operators of the theory will contain an infinite tower of conserved currents with unbounded spin. This is related to the fact that here the symmetries are of higher derivative and unbounded, and also it will include the spin 2 in general. Okay, so if you apply the ADS-CFT dictionary, this means that the bulk dual of a free or integrable conformal field theory should be dual to something like what we can call a higher spin gravity, and this will be kind of my definition here. So a theory whose spectrum contains an infinite tower of gauge fields dual to these conserved currents and with unbounded spin. So again, this is for dimension 4. In dimension 3, as we just heard, one can truncate the spectrum to some finite spin. Okay. So maybe first some remarks. So although the boundary theory is free, nevertheless, its endpoint correlators of these conserved currents are non-vanishing. So this means that in the bulk, you have endpoint vertices which are non-vanishing. So in that sense, the theory is interacting in this sense. Okay, so this already makes it not totally trivial. And one motivation for it, of course, it's not really to compute the boundary, which is completely known. It's a free theory, or in more interesting case, maybe an integrable model. But that's not about so much the motivation. The motivation is more about the bulk. Well, from the point of view of ADS-CFT, first of all, it can be maybe a kind of toy model where we could really prove everything, and maybe with mathematical level of rigor. And even if you are interested still in interacting conformal field theories, then you can consider that this is just a Gaussian starting point that you can start to deform by putting, for instance, double trace deformations that are well controlled. And in that case, you will softly break these higher spin symmetries, and still, hopefully, this CFT will be controlled by higher spin symmetry to some extent. Okay, but also from the quantum gravity perspective, it's also interesting because as the free CFTs will have no 1/n corrections by construction. But this means higher spin theories, which contain gravity in the sense that there is a spin 2 massless particle. In that sense, this means that they will be UV finite theories of gravity, quantum gravity, but in the strongest possible form, in the sense that they will have no quantum corrections. So that can be a nice toy model of quantum gravity in this sense. Okay, so I will focus on the simplest examples of this duality, where the boundary theory is a free vector model, and the ON model. So in that case, the elementary fields are free fields, and they belong to the vector representation of some internal symmetry group, and the spectrum of operators we are interested in, these are the singlet. Okay, since we are considering vector models, it's easy to do singlets. You just contract the indices with the correct, the corresponding metric. And so this means that all the singlet primary operators are just bilinear in the fundamental fields. And all these bilinears will contain, among other, an infinite tower of conserved currents. So this means that these vector models have really a relatively simple spectrum. And accordingly, also the bulk higher spin theory will be relatively simple. And all these conserved currents will correspond to massless higher spin fields. Okay, so since I will mostly work with conformal, characters of the conformal algebra, well, the point is that higher spin symmetry is so huge that many features of higher spin gravity are essentially controlled by the symmetries. And so in particular, this means that already the pure representation theoretical results about the conformal algebra can already tell us many things about higher spin gravity. First, it dictates the linearized spectrum by the so-called Flatov-Ronsdal theorem. You also know the symmetry algebra by Eastwood theorem. And also, that came a bit after, you can compute many vacuum one-loop quantities that already provide some test of the duality, this absence of 1/n corrections. Okay, so let me summarize the main messages. So first of all, what are the main people in this setting? So first of all, if I take the point of view of the conformal algebra, so what are my building blocks? So on the CFT side, the building blocks, the elementary fields, in this context, they are called singletons, and basically they are ultra-short irreducible representation of the conformal algebra, really the smallest one possible, the minimal representations. They were found by Dirac before they had this interpretation. So basically, these are just good conformal fields, elementary fields on the boundary. Okay, and the higher spin algebra, what is it? It's just you take the algebra of symmetries of these singletons. And since it's a free theory, you can also consider that all the polynomials of these generators, all the powers of these generators are also symmetries because it's a linear equation. And so in technical terms, this means that the enveloping algebra of all the conformal symmetries are also symmetries. So this is the higher spin algebra. It's just a realization of the universal enveloping algebra on the singleton. Okay, so this is on the CFT side. And now in the bulk, so you will have plenty of massless fields, and in more complicated cases, also partially massless or some massive fields. And for these fields, there can have two boundary conditions of either Dirichlet type, in which case you have normalizable modes, so they correspond to unitary irreducible representations, and since the fields are massless, they are short representations, and these ones, they are the dual to the conserved currents on the boundary. So that's nice, but also actually the Neumann boundary conditions are also quite interesting. Well, they correspond to non-normalizable modes, so non-unitary representations. And these ones, they will correspond to the sources on the boundary. But from what I will do for conformal higher spin gravity, these are actually your kind of elementary fields on the boundary. So they're not necessarily just sources, they can be seen as dynamical fields in some cases. Okay, so this was the point of view from just the conformal algebra. But so we know that for this free field, we also have this higher spin algebra of symmetries. It's enhanced. And so we can look at it now to describe all this in terms of this higher spin algebra itself. So in that case, the singleton is seen somehow as the fundamental representation, while the higher spin algebra is clearly its adjoint, since it's, in a sense, one can be precise. I will comment on this. How to describe it in terms of the singleton. And then there is also some nice feature that the spectrum of the theory can be seen can be obtained from just twisting the action of the higher spin algebra. So that's why it's called also this twisted adjoint module. And what is it? Well, basically, as I said, the spectrum of the theory is made of all these singlet bilinears operators. So essentially, they are bilinear. So this means, from representation theory, we should take the square of the elementary field, so this one. And now you can just do a kind of Clebsch-Gordan decomposition to have the spectrum of the theory in terms of this conformal algebra. And this is an old result of Flatto and Fronsdal that anticipated somewhat this higher spin holography, that this can be decomposed into the sum of all these massless fields with all spin with Dirichlet boundary conditions. So they can also be interpreted on the boundary as a conserved current for all spins. Okay, so these are the main people in the spectrum. And now I would like to describe them via characters, to describe the spectrum in a more explicit way. And also, it's interesting because it tells you something about one-loop partition functions. So I will combine the following ingredients. So first of all, we completely know the classification of generalized Verma module of the conformal algebra. We know the character formula for all these modules. So by combining these two things, we can basically compute the characters for all fields you are interested in. And these fields, they can be, these characters can be interpreted as some partition function on S1 times SD minus 2 if you are on the boundary. And so this means that you can compute, for instance, for this set of fields, the currents I'm very interested, the shadow fields, which are the corresponding sources, and also I am interested in conformal higher spin gravity. So in that case, the shadow, the source, can be interpreted as an off-shell conformal gauge field, and the current corresponds to the analog of the Bach equation that you can impose. And so in that sense, if you take a spinous gauge field and you impose the Bach equation, then you have a non-shell gauge field, and I will call it a Fradkin-Zeitlin field. And this is a really irreducible module. Okay, and if you look at it for the level equation, you can in fact understand in this sense that this on-shell conformal gauge field is the shadow where you impose the current to vanish somehow, the Bach equation, strictly speaking. Okay, but there is also a bulk point of view. So the current, as I said, they are dual to Dirichlet, massless fields with Dirichlet behavior. The shadow is related to the Neumann. And so in that sense, you have also that the Fradkin-Zeitlin field living on the boundary, a non-shell conformal gauge field, can be seen also as the kind of Weil anomaly where you impose it to cancel of massless fields. In that case, it corresponds to this quotient. And this can indeed be seen at the level of one-loop partition functions, where really the one-loop partition function of this on-shell conformal gauge fields is really the quotient of the partition function. Okay. So as I said, the main results I will mention is about conformal higher spin gravity. So I should explain a bit what it is. So at the free level, it's just a higher spin generalization of the Maxwell photon and the Weil graviton. In practice, its kinetic operator has 2s plus d minus 4 derivatives. So it's local when it is in even dimension. But as one can see, like the Weyl graviton, it's generically non-unitary, starting from spin 2. So this makes this theory, of course, non-unitary, unfortunately, at least perturbatively. But the good news for higher spin perspective is that although it's a non-unitary theory, nevertheless, we really know a lot. It's one of the most concrete examples in some sense, because we have an action, we know how to compute all the vertices perturbatively. So many things, the symmetries are quite well understood, and so on and so forth. So as a classical theory, how do you build this nonlinear action? Essentially, you consider a conformal scalar field on the boundary, and you minimally couple it to some higher spin sources. And then you compute the effective action, and you integrate out this conformal scalar field. So you have the one loop effective action, and then you just take the logarithmically divergent piece of this. So this works for essentially for spin 2. In that case, you reproduce Weyl action. So this is perfectly well defined, and so we perfectly know this theory. There are many techniques to compute the vertices. Okay, so one question is, as a quantum theory, although it's non-unitary, maybe still you can ask other questions like whether or not it has some gauge anomalies, because if not, then at least it's almost a consistent theory up to unitarity. And so one question is whether or not it has vanishing Weyl anomaly and its higher spin extensions. And from the holographic point of view, it's also the logarithmically divergent piece of the on-shell action. Okay, so we have the problem of this conformal higher spin gravity and all these higher spin theories is that we have an infinite tower of fields, of unbounded spin. So this means that when you will compute the partition functions, you will have an infinite sum over spins, and generically it grows polynomially with spin. So this means that you will need to regularize. So the standard regularization is using a zeta function. And in that case, people could show in many examples that you have the expected cancellations at one loop. As I said, it should be a theory without one loop correction or any loop correction. So you can compute the vacuum bubble diagrams or the Casimir energy for higher spin gravity. And indeed, you find that it's 0. Okay, so it's a nice check of the duality. You can also do this for conformal higher spin gravity. People, for instance, could show that the type A Weyl anomaly cancels up to this regularization, and also that the Casimir energy vanishes for conformal higher spin gravity. So in that sense, it's maybe a good candidate of higher spin gravity without gauge anomalies. So it could be as good as maximally supersymmetric conformal gravity. There is just a subtlety actually about the type B Weyl anomaly. This remains an open problem, so everything has not been said yet, who knows. Okay, but what are the main results I would like to talk about? Okay. So there are two regularizations I will comment on. First of all, the motivation was to compute the character of the higher spin algebra. Okay, so this was more like a mathematical problem to understand better this module, this adjoint module. And what we observed is that the naive expectation that, so basically people were expecting that the adjoint is just the general linear algebra of the singleton. I told you, you have this singleton, and the higher spin algebra is just the algebra of symmetries of this singleton. So basically, you could expect something like the general linear group or maybe the unitary group. But so in that sense, you expect to have this, singletons times the dual of the singleton, Ket and Bra. But that's not it's a bit oversimplified, and strictly speaking, what we observed using characters is you really need to symmetrize over all Cartan generators. You should arc with the Weil group to make this more precise. Okay, so in itself, this is maybe a quite mathematical result, but it has a nice application actually for conformal higher spin gravity, because there we observe that using a suitable regularization, we could show that the character of the linearized spectrum, there is a remarkable simplification that kills all contributions except the one coming from the killing tensors. And this, they give rise to the higher spin algebra, which in that case is seen as the symmetry algebra of this conformal higher spin gravity. So this remarkable cancellation, well, we have no field theoretical way to understand this, but at least it suggests that in some sense, conformal higher spin gravity, although it has infinitely many degrees of freedom, for some reason, after some suitable regularization, it might be somewhat topological in the sense that the only surviving dynamical degrees of freedom are the asymptotic charges. Okay, so don't have much time, so I will have to skip many things, which is okay. Just as a caveat, of course, I use some regularization prescription. Okay, maybe I will really move quite, sorry, no, I will still say something about that, sorry. Okay, maybe just to have some idea of what the theory is. So what is conformal higher spin gravity? So the shadow field I mentioned several times, these are the sources that couple to conserved currents, for instance, and basically they are just conformal gauge fields, so they have this kind of gauge symmetry that generalize U1 or linearized diffeomorphisms, and they have also the Weil part, okay? So like for conformal gravity, you can build gauge invariant quantities at linearized level. These are the higher spin Weil tensors, where you take just S derivatives and suitably symmetrize. And you have an action, which was proposed by Fradkin and Zeitlin, which is basically, again, a suitable symmetrization, but you start with a kinetic operator, which has this form. And you can rewrite it just like Weil square. Okay, so you have some back equations, again, some generalized back equations, and when you impose, then I call them Fradkin-Zeitlin. So this is the content of the theory, and this I will skip. And the only thing I can say maybe quickly is that, well, this is perfectly understood in terms of Verma modules. We know how to describe all these fields. Okay, so I will skip all the details, but I will just give an idea of the proof about the partition function. Okay, so this is the character of a Verma module, for instance, where Q is the exponential of the inverse of the minus the inverse of the temperature, and X are related to the spin degrees of freedom. Okay, the Cartan generator of SOD. Okay, an important property is that the Verma module characters have a very nice symmetry property, parity property, with respect to sending the temperature to minus the temperature. And this is related to sending lowest weight modules to highest weight modules. And this property actually will have a crucial role in this cancellation I mentioned you. Because what is the main identities we use? Basically, for the shadow, you can show that the character of the shadow field, so the off-shell conformal gauge fields, is equal to the character of the killing tensor plus the character of the conserved current, but where you invert the temperature. It goes to minus the temperature, okay? And now if you want to impose it to see what is the on-shell field, in that case, you have to impose the back tensor, and in practice, it just means you should subtract the character of the conserved current. So this is the main identity. We have basically Fradkin-Zeitlin field, so on-shell field is killing tensors plus conserved current, but with some. This is something like the anti-particle, if you want, of all these conserved currents. And here you have the conserved currents. So you need to sum all of these for all spins. And the remarkable thing is that, as you can see, this sum, they will give basically the same thing up to changing Q to Q minus 1. And what we observe is that actually, due to the Flatov-Ronsdal theorem, these two terms cancel exactly. So you are just left with the sum of these two. This is the spectrum of conformal higher spin gravity, and this is the spectrum of the higher spin algebra. Okay, so that's the main idea and the main result. So since I have shown this, I can go to the conclusion. So as I said, up to some suitable regularization, because strictly speaking, one of the manipulations we did is to take the sum of the conserved current and their antiparticle, if you want, separately. So strictly speaking, this is a bit wild operation because they do not converge. These two sums do not converge in the same region. So this means you make some assumption by doing this. So this is one regularization. But modulo this, we indeed obtain that the linearized spectrum of conformal higher spin gravity, and this is true for a whole zoo of theories, which I don't comment, I just explain the simplest example, is equal just to the asymptotic charges, if you want, okay? All the conformal killing tensors. Okay, so this confirms actually, it was already anticipated to some extent, that conformal higher spin gravity, after some suitable regularization, has some nice features. So also an automatic corollary of our result is also that the Weyl anomaly, the type A Weyl anomaly, and the Casimir energy vanish for conformal higher spin gravity at one loop. So indeed, there is no scale. It seems no scale is generated, although we just know the type A. And the theory appears somewhat topological. Okay, and so in terms of perspectives, I can just say that, of course, this is nice. It's a kind of mathematical results about the regularized characters, but we don't have really field theoretical proof of or understanding of what this cancellation really means. So it would be nice to be a bit more concrete and see what is going on in terms of fields to see whether or not there is a more formulation that makes this result manifest. And also, if we succeed to do that, maybe since we have the nonlinear theory, to see if this kind of statement remains true at interacting level, and to see if it means something maybe even deeper. Okay, so thank you.
Since you have the action with higher derivatives, what prevents you from checking that statement? What is the difficulty? For spin 2, for example,
Oh, no. So be careful. Huh? So it's only once you include the infinite tower. I mean, it's kind of generic feature of higher spin theory. It's basically, it happens to be that you have these divergent sums over spin.
Right.
So after some suitable regularization that should be consistent with higher spin symmetry in principle, you have the fact that this infinity is actually equal to 0. So it's in that sense. So spin 2 alone is indeed, first it is Weyl anomalous. Huh? Conformal gravity is just Weyl anomalous. And similarly, I mean, it has much more degrees of freedom than just the asymptotic symmetry.